I went to Holland and trained with Vitesse, which is in a little town called Arnhem. Everyone was so immersed in soccer in Holland that it was for those players their pathway to a future. They've looked at it that way. The players were trained and treated that way. And because of that, the investment into the club and the resources of the club were following suit. So, it really is overseas a way to get a young player on, develop that player, especially the Dutch and the German mentality, and sell that player on in future years so that that investment can come back to the club. So they're very willing to invest in players. Here, it's a different model. The families invest in soccer for their children in hopes that there will be a return at some point in the sense of a college scholarship or some future pathway. Overseas, it was treated like a business. And although when
In Europe, soccer is a lifestyle, not a pastime, supported by a cultural appreciation for the game and comprehensive infrastructure. For Americans, youth soccer has grown from the bottom up, as parents coached teams and founded leagues. The lack of organization on a national level has led to a confusing and complicated pyramid of U.S. soccer.
We had to stick together because it was women's soccer, and a lot of the male coaches still look down upon it. A lot of American football called all soccer communist sport at the time. And even the whippy old board of directors hated soccer in one sense because they just felt it wasn't the type of game that
USSF. Just in the Western Pennsylvania Soccer Association, that's under the USSF. They have to adhere to the same laws in the game as the USSF does, which has to adhere to the laws of FIFA. And I have to tell you this anecdote.
American club soccer falls under the jurisdiction of several larger bodies. First, there is FIFA, the global governing body for soccer. Within FIFA, there is CONCACAF, the regional governing body for soccer in the Americas. Soccer in the United States is overseen by the U.S. Soccer Federation, which in turn is responsible for several youth club organizations. First, the American Youth Soccer Organization is a private club league founded in 1964. Next, there is U.S. Youth Soccer, which oversees state associations, including PA West, the regional body for club soccer in Pittsburgh. Next, there is U.S. Club Soccer, founder of the Elite Club National League, the top league for girls club soccer in the country. Finally, there is the U.S. Development Academy, based on the European Academy system, founded in 2007 for boys and 2017 for girls. The two major organizations missing from this diagram are high school and college soccer, which do not fall under the jurisdiction of FIFA or any of its affiliates.
the high schools only started with 4 teams, so they didn't have a lot of options. When we joined it, as I was at Fox Chapel, it only went to 8 teams. Meanwhile, the boys all had like 90 at the time. So you had 8, 90, all right, in the discrepancy. Even in the pay scale, if you were coaching a women's team, you were getting less pay than your male counterpart at the same high school. That stayed away for like 20 years. We couldn't, even with the union, so you just couldn't get it to even up like that.
In 1980, the first year, there was 3 high school girls teams in Western Pennsylvania. That kept building. And what that built from was there was already youth teams being created in these areas, and these were the suburban teams. Mount Lebanon, Upper St. Clair, Fox Chapel, and Shaler, and Bethel Park were the early teams around here. And the demand for the high school teams came because of the fact that there were youth teams.
Especially in the female
And so
side.
the youth programs.
It's just part of our Western PA high school sports is so just, I think, just in us out here, you know what I mean? It's just in our DNA to play high school sports that the kids missed it and they just wanted to play high school. So, you know, most of your kids, like it's weird when you read bios across the country of kids committing collegiately, you'll read a lot of your top women's players, they'll say didn't play for their high school. But the vast majority of all your Western PA kids played high school.
It got to a certain age with club soccer when you got to, I think, U14, when they assume everyone is a freshman in high school. The fall season is given off in club soccer. So everyone could play high school if they wanted to, and then you just pick up in the spring. So that's why
But in other areas of the country, like high school soccer can be in the spring, and that's a direct conflict with like your spring leagues and your regional and your national leagues. So in those areas, I think it's a lot harder to play high school. or some of those kids are trying to double up. Some associations were saying that you cannot play high school and for your club team at the same time. So we've just been very fortunate that I think POS has supported high school athletics, and so there's just never been that conflict for our kids.
High school soccer, a wholly American form of the game, though not as competitive as club or academy soccer, still demands a lot of its players. High school players are often competing on 4 or 5 teams with different styles of play and different areas of focus.
Your high school season, you have 3 games a week, which is unheard of. No one else has that. Like, you don't have that for club. You don't have that collegiately. So those kids are getting beat up for those couple months. It's a lot of soccer. So we've shifted where we train a lot less than we ever have. Even our 2-a-days, we don't do 2-a-days as much because you just don't do that in any other environment. And if the kids are coming in fit and they've been playing year-round, you shouldn't really need all those hours just to try to get them where they need to be. Before you did, because that was their only soccer.
At one point, maybe when I was 14 or 15, I was on like 5 different teams. So like my I guess it was my middle school and my club, and I was on like a futsal team. So I mean, it was a lot.
So in the fall, I would play high school, which was practice every day after school for roughly an hour and a half. But we played a lot of games in high school. We'd probably have 2 or 3 a week. So practices weren't as heavy or didn't happen as often just because you were playing so much.
So the area was so inclined to play games. You know, America in general wants to play games, and win trophies. And I think the Pittsburgh mentality when I first moved here was, the Steelers were looking to get that ring for the thumb, and that mentality of playing games and winning was a real thing here. So.
Entering an already crowded market, the new development academies placed more restrictions upon their players than the high school, club, or elite leagues. Development academies come from the European system where players are wholly devoted to football from a young age. In America, this new system introduced a new, more professional style of development to young players.
Clubs started, as I said, first. The clubs came first, then the high school teams. And then the elite teams came, and that began in the late 80s.
I don't know how much you guys know about the DA, but that's the kids. The men's side has had it for 10 years. It's the very first year at the women's side. So it's a 10-month season. It's totally controlled by U.S. Soccer. They can't play high school, and they can't play any other sports. And they don't do ODP. They don't play club. You just play for your DA, U.S. DA team. So DA is the only thing that's regulated under any governing body that forbids high school. When Riverhounds first started, they tried not letting kids play high school, and then they got a lot of pushback. And that was just them saying, we don't want you to play high school because they feel like, you're going to lose those few months, and the coaches are inferior, the players are inferior, and all that. And then they got pushed back, and kids wanted to play high school, especially on the female side. There's still so much of a social and community aspect.
It's different because in club soccer, we play in like a league. So we played in PA West. And academy, when I was playing, it was more of just like, you went to tournaments and stuff, but now like they've built up to the ECNL, which is like the best like league for soccer I know for women. I'm not sure if for men is the same, but so I mean I think it's just a different level. I think academy is more structured. I think it's faster play. I think it's like more, I would say more professional. I think especially with the Riverhounds because they did have a professional team. So we kind of like emulated some of the things that they did through like practice, through warm up. Like our lifting coach was very like professional with that and stuff like that. So I just think it's more structured, I would say.
I think my club training was a lot of scrimmage based, a lot of tactics, and academy from what I was doing was a lot of technical, a lot of repetition. Just a lot of focusing on like where the pass should go, your first touch, things like the little things that play into the more club style practices.
The club teams are doing one thing, the elite teams are doing another thing, and the high school teams are doing something completely different. So there was no top down of saying this is how we need to develop players. And until that gets in place in America, which is one of the problems, that nothing's going to change, and especially in PA West.